Peace and love, everyone. Welcome. I hear an American robin singing out there, out in the rural land of Maine, along the coast. Today's title is Beyond Rage. Madame Guyon, Ego Death, Near Death Experience, and the Love That Remains. So peace and welcome and love. Thanks for being here live. And something popped up on my screen. I'm going to clear that out. I'd like to begin today with a quote from the 17th century French mystic Madame Guyon. Jeanne-Marie Bolivier de la Montguyon was known as Madame Guyon, and she was alive 1648 to 1717. And she was a French Christian mystic accused of promoting quietism, a teaching deemed heretical by the Catholic Church. She was imprisoned for this from 1695 to 1703 after publishing a book titled A Short and Very Easy Method of Prayer. She wrote in her autobiography, a person truly humbled permits not anything to put him or her in a rage, as it is pride which dies the last in the soul, so it is passion which is last destroyed in outward conduct. A soul thoroughly dead to itself finds nothing of rage left. At first glance, this may seem like spiritual perfectionism, a sort of moral accomplishment reserved for saints and isolated souls. However, when I read this, I don't perceive moralism. Instead, what I recognize is truth with a capital T. And I sense something in this that I've experienced. Because I died, and in dying, I discovered the death of self, the egoic self. And when I returned, I wasn't the same. Not because I tried to change, but because something within me had already died. Something I couldn't resurrect, even if I wanted to, and I tried. What Guyon describes is a spiritual transformation that occurs when the egoic self dies, not just conceptually, but also experientially. When divine love with a capital D and a capital L becomes the sole center of gravity remaining. And before I continue, let me pause for a moment and make this personal. During my near-death experience in the Canadian wilderness, I encountered something that most mystics describe only after decades of surrender: an instantaneous, total dissolution of myself into the infinite light. That light wasn't neutral. It was love, capital L, love, pure, overwhelming, intimate, and absolute. In that love, there was no me left to defend, no person left to protect, no story to cling to. There was just being, just knowing, just union. And it didn't contain any rage, because rage can't exist there, doesn't exist there. Rage is the heat of the separate self. It's the emotional byproduct of an ego that believes it must control, possess, or be right to exist. It flares up when our identity is threatened, when someone cuts us off, disrespects us, disagrees with us, or wounds our pride. Rage says, "Don't you know who I am?" But if that I is absent, if there is no me at the center, what's there to rage about? Who can do the raging? This is what Madame Guyon means when she writes, "A soul thoroughly dead to itself finds nothing of rage left." She's not referring to behavior modification or suppressing our feelings. She's talking about the real thing, the annihilation of the false self. If you die before you die, then when you die, you will not die, as it's written in the monastery in Mount Athos in Greece. And if that sounds like poetry, let me assure you, it's more real than life itself because I experienced it. Many of you have too, if only for a moment. I've heard from countless others who have returned from the edge of death or different kinds of mystical experiences with a taste of quietness they didn't possess before, a kind of stillness that wasn't trained but bestowed. This resonates throughout the mystical traditions. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna states that anger arises from desire and desire comes from attachment. To be liberated means to be free from both. The sage acts neither from passion nor from aversion. She observes with equanimity because herself is no longer entangled in outcomes. The Sufis refer to this as fauna, the annihilation of the ego, in the beloved. Rumi writes, I have been burned, I have melted, and become nothing. My every particle is now a part of God. In that burning, the reactive emotions lose their footing. In Buddhism, it's anatta, no self. When the illusion of a permanent separate self is seen through, reactivity falls away. Rage becomes unnecessary because there's no one left to be insulted. Even Jesus teaches this. Blessed are the meek, he says. Turn the other cheek. Love your enemies. Not as moral rules, but as descriptions of what it means to live without ego. His own experience. On the cross, he doesn't rage. He forgives. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. In the light, I see this not as a rule to follow, but as a natural outflow of the divine being. In connection, forgiveness is what love does because love is who God is. And let me return to Madame Guyon, her middle sentence, because it holds quiet wisdom. As it is pride which dies the last in the soul, so it is passion which is last destroyed in the outward conduct. The treasure of the heart speaks. What's in the heart shows. She knew, like most of us discover, that the soul may awaken first, but the personality takes longer to catch up. Following a near-death experience, an NDE, mine, others, an awakening, or a mystical union, we still have our bodies. We still have our old habits. We still get triggered. But something is different. For me, even when anger rises now, and yes, I am human, it doesn't root itself in the same way. It passes more quickly. It doesn't claim authority. I can observe it rise and let it fall with more ease because it's no longer me. And that is freedom. What Madame Guyon called being dead to oneself isn't a loss. It's liberation. In fact, those who have died and returned often say this, or something like this, that they no longer fear death. Not because we've become strong, but because we've seen that we are not the self that dies. The small self ends, but the soul continues. The higher self continues on, eternally held in the arms of love, with a capital L. So if you've suffered or are suffering now, if you feel that rage, fear, or pride lives within you, know this. Beneath all that noise is your truer self. Not a personality, not your history, not your trauma, but your soul, which belongs to the beloved, capital B, in which goodness, capital G, already dwells. At the core of your being is belovedness and goodness. And you don't have to die to find it. But sometimes when you die, you return knowing that in your bones. And the chamber of the heart. So let me end where I began, with a mystic's voice from centuries ago. A soul thoroughly dead to itself finds nothing left of rage. To die before you die is a gift, but to live after such a death without rage, without pride, with the love at the center, is the true beginning. The title of my book is Heaven is Beautiful and Death is Just the Beginning. This is just the beginning. And thank you for being here and listening. Peace. So let's take a breath together. We have to the bottom of the hour here. Pull my chair. And I don't know if I've ever said this before, but sometimes when I meditate, I'm barefoot. I'm barefoot a lot in my life. And sometimes I put my bare feet together. I kind of touch my big toes together and the next toe down, and I kind of make a little cup space for my feet, and my knees a little splay out a little bit. I find that it gives me a center line in my breath and my focus, so I can run from the energy center in the balls and the arch of my foot right up through all the chakras and back down again. Just as something as an aside. So let's take a breath together. You may close your eyes if you want to. Feel the rising and the falling of your chest as you breathe, filling your belly first. Now gently imagine what it would feel like to let go of needing to be right, defended, or in control. What would remain beneath the noise, beneath the story, beneath the fear? Can you sense the stillness? You're already held in love. There's nothing to protect. There is only being. Rest here in the chamber of your heart. Breathe love into your heart, repeating the word love if you'd like. See you at the bottom of the hour. Peace and love, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for meditating with us. Hi, Basilia. Thanks for the love there, Catherine. Hi, Ellie, Edie, Kate, and Jack. Peace to be with you. And Kristen, Wanda, and everybody. Thank you. Hey, Deanna.